Shaun T, and it's time to trust and believe. I'm so excited to talk to you guys today because I just believe for some reason in life, men just have a hard time expressing their emotions to other guys. You know, it's kind of like we get together and we just, you know, we act like, you know, we kind of have it all together. And I just know that you guys are like all about just being really transparent with your emotions and your feelings. So when you ask me how I'm doing, even though I feel like I should be asking you how you're doing because it's my podcast, you know, I'm pretty good, but I'm definitely ready for a break. I think most people have been in this pandemic and they have, so what I'm looking for, you feel like, oh, I'm home, so I'm going to be more relaxed, and I'm home and I have like a little bit more freedom or whatever it is, comfort. And for me, the pandemic has actually made me work harder, and I'm just exhausted, you know.
I've been the same way, man. The last couple weeks, my motivation to work has been through the roof. Like, I have just dove in head first on so many of the different projects that I'm working on. And I didn't know why, but I think it is that. I think it's that undercurrent of stress that you got to put it somewhere.
Yeah, and I think I even though like it's interesting. I was talking to Chip, who works with us, and you know, he sent me a message. He was like, I remember you wanting to talk about Suicide Prevention Month, not to go like super deep there, but it's just really important. I just know that through this pandemic, I've seen a lot of for some reason, articles come up on people who have been suffering from mental health in the worst way. And I think people are just so afraid to, number one, state the fact that they're going through something really tough. And number two, I think that's just it. They're just so afraid to state it. And then they're unable to work through it if they're not able to state it. So when you say, how are you? I'm making a point when anyone asks me how I'm doing, I'm going to tell you exactly how I'm doing.
Nice. We appreciate that.
Yeah, it's important because, you know, I know you do this with your show, and it's kind of the focus of what we do is just trying to normalize the struggle, trying to make it a little less lonely when you're in those darkest times. And so it's just so important. And like you said, men don't do that enough. It's all, you know, beer and football and how's work, and that's sort of where it ends. So, you know, the more voices we have like yours and like ours that can normalize this experience for men, I think only serves to strengthen all of us.
So how are you, Zach? What's going on with you?
I'm good. I'm actually on vacation right now. We got an Airbnb at the beach in Cape Cod.
Yes.
And it's, you know, I don't think I realized how much I just needed a change in scenery. Like, for the most part, we're doing the same thing here that we do at home, but in a different environment at the beach. And it's been so lightening for my mood, for my health, for everything, my family, even just, you know, we're still all together, but in a different place. And it's been so great.
Scott and I always talk about if we ever get into like a disagreement or an argument, you know, because it's married life. We always make a pact that if we start to feel overwhelmed in this situation, we change the scenery. Like if we're in a bedroom, or if we're in the house, we're just going to go for a walk. Even if I don't want to talk to you right now, you know, it's just like going for a walk, and the change of scenery is so interesting. You know, I'll be the first person to say, when the pandemic happened, I was actually not happy that there was a pandemic, but I was happy to stay home because I was always on the road. So the change of scenery for me was getting up at 5 a.m., getting on a 6 o'clock flight, 6:30 flight, traveling somewhere, you know, over and over again, a few times a week, if not more. And and then when the pandemic happened, I actually felt a sense of peace in the beginning because I was just like, wow, like this is so cool. Like I put my kids to bed every night for 45 days straight. Like that had never happened before. Yeah. And then, you know, kind of when you settle into that, now I'm like, oh, no. Like, this is crazy. But besides changing locations and stuff, what are some other methods that you all use to kind of get through that mental tough state?
I had a moment this week. For me, one of the bedrocks of everything I do is meditation. It's the tool that I fall back on time and time again. And this week, I've had a handful of experiences like this where I do some really sort of deep work in kind of a quick time. But I found myself in my daughter's room after a couple of days, just kind of working around the house, just doing my thing, living my life. I kept getting bombarded with these memories as a child when I was like, for whatever reason, I was alone waiting for my mom to come out of the house where we were. And I was just screaming. I was just sad, angry, ashamed for a number of different reasons. And these moments, I describe it like when you're walking through your yard and you hit a spider web. It's just out of nowhere. And things I hadn't thought about in 20 years. And I just couldn't figure out why this kept happening. And so I was sitting in my daughter's room, helping her fall asleep, just kind of holding her hand. And I decided, I'm going to take a minute and just meditate on these thoughts and figure out what am I having these memories for? And I'm just holding her hand, and I recognize that she's holding, you know what the Porg is from Star Wars, the little puppet, like the bird thing. She's holding her little puppet that we got her in Disney World when we were there as the pandemic hit. Like a month later, everything locked down. So that was our last real normal experience. And I felt my hand touch it, and I flashed back to normal. And it felt really like, oh, man, I remember that. Okay, that's how life was. And then in an instant, the dots all connected that I was having these same feelings of grief and fear and sadness for what I've lost. And I hadn't really processed it. I've just been surviving, right? I've just been getting my kids through school, been doing work. And in that moment, I recognized I was having those thoughts, those memories, because it was my body saying, you need to work through this. The only way over anything is through it. And you need to sit with this feeling and recognize that grief and acknowledge it and let it go so that you can move forward. And so to me, that's just one example. I've had a handful of moments like that over the years, but every time, if I can't tell what's going on, if I'm struggling, if there's stress, I always turn to meditation because so often I find the answers are already in me. I just need to quiet the other voices and listen to the guiding.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. Meditation is becoming more mainstream. There's a bunch of different apps out there. I know meditation helped me a lot when I was going through really bad anxiety last year, or maybe it was the year before. I don't even remember now because of where we are in life. Actually started with the Headspace app and then Calm. And then now I know how to go there on my own because it's, some people need direction. But what do you say for those people who are like, no, but you're just sitting there like who discount meditation and they kind of throw it away?
Yeah. So right. I can speak to that one because I've got super high anxiety. I was tested a few years ago and they were showing me the results and they're like, here's the top of the scale. Like here's 10 and you're way above that on the anxiety level. And I didn't quite realize that. And, I started doing yoga at the same time and I can't sit still. Like I can't sit still and focus on my breathing. There's something about it. I want to crawl out of my skin. I cannot do it. It's so hard for me to do. But yoga, on the other hand, is a lot of the same, breathing and the mindfulness portions of meditation, but you're moving and you're keeping yourself, for me anyway, I'm keeping my body active, and distracted from anything that's going on in my body. And I think for me, like I did yoga today just to wind down a little bit, that for me, that's my meditation. It keeps me in a meditative state, just breathing throughout the entire practice. As long as you're breathing when they tell you to breathe, it gives you that benefit of meditation without having to sit still.
Yeah. And I think too, that I get that point of view that it is just sitting there and you're not really doing anything. But if that is your experience, then I don't think you're opening yourself up to it. I think you're judging your own action. And if you can, through tools like Headspace is great because it's not perfect. It's not exactly meditation, but it is a great guide in helping you learn how to do it. And as you've learned, you can get to a point where you can do it on your own, and you can do some really deep, really healing work if you can sort of get over that hump of learning to let go of the thoughts.
Yeah, I think that was what was interesting about Headspace. It really taught you how to let go. I think one of the most probably profound things that I learned is, especially as somebody who suffers from anxiety, is you kind of like dwell on the future. You know, a therapist once told me, you know, depression is dealing with stuff from that hurts you from the past, and anxiety is all about the future. And I had to kind of let go of the fact that I couldn't control what was going to happen. And yeah, I'm sitting there like creating these scenarios of things that didn't even happen. So that particular app just helped me learn how to just like let things go by and not grab onto them and hold on to them and make them a part of, you know, reality when it's not really reality, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, you know, Zach, I wanted to ask you a question because I know a lot of people who suffer from anxiety, especially in one of my online groups. It's really prominent. And what was the test like? I'm very interested in how they tested your anxiety. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it was really just a series of questions, and you know how I react to certain things and what my thought process was. This was, when was that? It was almost 9 years ago. So it's a little fuzzy, but it was a series of interviews. I want to say it was probably about 6 hours of like talking with a therapist who just asked questions, and I had to take a whole bunch of computer tests of, they'd pop up a random number and you'd have to click A or B or something like that. It was interesting in that there was nothing anxious about it, yet out of the test, they were able to determine what my level of anxiety was.
The next thing that's really important for people, a lot of people don't feel like they have the support, or, you know, people outside of them look at mental health and they're like, oh, it's just, you know, you just have to think differently. Like, how do you feel supported? Right. And what do you tell people who don't feel supported?
So my wife is extremely supportive. So I battle depression. I have my entire life, and she will see it before I will. I have a really hard time but recognizing when I have it. And a lot of times it just stems from being overwhelmed. Stuff will just build up, just normal day-to-day stuff, and it just gets to be too much. And that's when my body starts to shut down and wants to go into a depressed state. And she'll see, like, you know, I'll snap at the kids. I'll do something that is out of the ordinary, that just shows that I'm struggling somehow. And she'll say, you need a break. Whatever you need. At one point, go to the movies, take a walk, go for a drive, go wherever. Do what you need to do for you, because sticking around, you know, powering through isn't doing any of us any good. We want you to take care of you so you can show up for us. But when you ignore yourself and you don't do that work for yourself, you're not the person that you want to be for us. And so she's a really good guide. But it's taken years for us to sort of find a path to have those conversations without me feeling offended, without me feeling like, no, I'm just tired, leave me alone, or whatever. Because she's always right. Like, whenever she says, are you depressed? I'll go, I hadn't considered it, but yes, clearly that's what's going on. And sometimes I'll argue with her for a day or two and then go out. Once again, I should have listened to her. So I think it's important if you have someone in your life to have the conversation with them about your anxiety or your depression. And it's hard because, you know, I still really struggle with telling her what I need from her in those moments. I don't always know what kind of support I need. A lot of times I just need to sit in a dark room for 3 days by myself and just be there and sort of removed from everything to recharge. And she's cool with that. I'm not cool with that. I feel like I'm letting everyone down. I feel like I'm a huge failure as a father and a husband and everything else. But there's something in me that when I don't address those issues presents itself that way. So just being open and talking to the people around you about what you're going through and just expressing how you feel is I think, the way you open the door to getting the help from them.
Yeah, it's also, when you're going through something like that, your mental health journey, I mean, it could be embarrassing, right? Because you feel like you are the burden. And that's why it's I love to hear that your wife is so supportive and is able to recognize when you're in that state and sometimes before you. It's been really hard for me to admit that I'm having like a lot of anxiety and I'm super overwhelmed, because people look at me as like Shaun T and like, he has it all together. And I'm like, yeah, in the good times, I really have it all together. But sometimes it's so overwhelming.
My wife is, I will say that my wife has been my saving grace. She's my best friend. She's, when we met, my anxiety was fairly crippling. I wouldn't speak up in a room. I wouldn't, express my own ideas. I would stay in the back. I just had no confidence, no ability to, think that I could contribute anything to any situation that I was in. It was a really negative and dark time for me. And she was, interestingly enough, she was one of the first people in my life to, say, hey, you should say things. You're kind of smart sometimes. She held those comments to rare occasions, but but she encouraged me to get out there and face my anxiety a little bit. And sure enough, I started saying things based on her recommendations, and my career kind of took off, and people actually did think I was smart. But then it kind of went the other way, and then I got ahead of myself, and I like to go. I kind of go in all the way on something or not at all. And I discovered this journey of, oh, wow, I can make changes to myself and better my anxiety. And I went, 120% into it, to the point where my wife actually had to reel me back in and say, hey, you're doing a great job taking care of yourself. And I'm seeing all these great changes in you. But we have a toddler at home, and you going off to 10-day retreats or something and not being here for us all the time, that's a problem. So I need you to reel it back in a little bit, which was, good, because sure enough, she was right. I had gone a little bit too far in this, repairing myself, because I saw that I could do it and I had the power to do it. So she's been so open. She's the one who encouraged me. She reeled me back in, and now it's like this really nice balancing act that she, carries for our family. She lets me know when I'm going too far, and she, pushes me to go further when she doesn't think I'm going far enough.
Yeah, I think that it really helps people out there know that, I call them accountability partners, is so important. I actually know a good amount of people who've been through 12-step programs for addiction of different sorts and alcoholism. And while I've never been through a 12-step program, it's like very similar in having that person there that can recognize, when you're going down whatever path that is not the perfect path for you, or when you're doing too much. And just having a balance is really great. I have another question for you guys. I'm going back to I love how you have your spouses really help you. Same with me. But what about like your friends, or like your male friends? Because it's just like, I have found some male friends that are like so cool and so open. And for some reason, I think I've gotten lucky with having guys around that are down with me talking about mental health and like breathing and just meditation and whatever it is that I'm doing. But, have all of your friends been supportive of this? Have you had anybody, not necessarily question what you're doing, but just kind of look at you sideways like, okay.
Yeah, I've had one friend in particular who was, I just remember telling him some of the things I was doing, and he was, he had a smile on his face, and he was like, okay. But for the most part, I've always been an emotional guy and highly sensitive guy, and I prefer a deep heart-to-heart conversation with somebody over small talk any day. So my friend base that I've built over the years has really been, similar types of people. If I can't have a deep conversation with somebody, I'm not super interested in, making that relationship grow as much. Does that make sense?
100%. I totally get it. I mean, I think there has to be some sort of balance, because there are friends, there are people out there that they just want to see the like super energetic, positive, side. And I'm like, okay, well, I can see you at the party. Mm-hmm. But to have a friend, if we went out on the boat, like, of course I want to either have some drinks or laugh. But if we wanted to go to a place that was like, I've been going through something and I want your support. Like, I love having people that can jump in there and like go there for a while. So I totally get what you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah, I've always been the same way. In fact, for years, I thought there was something wrong with me because I don't know how to small talk. A lot of times I don't get where they're going. It's almost like it's another language, and I don't know how to play in that world. And so I don't have a lot of friends that try to do that. I have some that they have walls, right? But but I see their heart, and I know who they are on the inside, and they may struggle to get that to come out of their mouth, but I know them, right? But for the most part, the thing I hear a lot is, this sounds egotistical, but I hear a lot of envy. I hear a lot of, I wish I could be as disciplined as you. I wish I could do the things that you've done. I've worked out a bunch. I dropped 70 pounds. I quit drinking 3 years ago. I'm a different person than I was, 5 years ago. And a lot of the people that I used to drink with all the time and that I used to live that kind of a life with are jealous that I've found a healthier, happier way to live, and they don't know how to flip that switch. And they say they want to, but they don't know how to flip that switch. And I don't want to preach to anyone. And like we do on our show, we're not experts, right? We're experts on what we do. We're experts on what our experience is. So I share with them, here's what I did. Here's the decision I made. Here's how I stuck with it. And at that point, it's on them if they really want to make that change. But for the most part, yeah, it's mostly a lot of like, wow, how did you do it? Good for you. I'm proud of you. But yeah, I'm very much the same way. Tell me more about your struggles and your pain and what you're really going through. Tell me all about that before you tell me how the Mariners are doing.
That's one of the main reasons why I hate it. I hate using the word hate. I hate using the word hate, but I'm going to use it in this situation. It's one of the main reasons why I hated living in Los Angeles, because you would go to a party or you would go to just a function and people were like, what's your name and what do you do? How about, what's your name? What do you enjoy? What's your life like? Like, tell me more about you. So anyway, let's talk more about your podcast, guys, because, I think what we've talked about so far is really what people are going to get, which is the authentic you, or authentic y'all, like I would say. And just like that really deep, down and dirty way of like living and getting the truth. So tell my listeners more about the podcast. I mean, I know, but tell the listeners more about the podcast.
Sure.
Yeah. So, we have to steal a line from one of your former guests, Robin Roberts. We're making our mess our message.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It is, there's nothing clean about getting healthier and, fixing lifelong things. And, we want to show people that, and especially men, it's okay to be vulnerable. And through that vulnerability, you can be stronger emotionally, mentally, physically, right? Just being vulnerable and talking about these things. Jeremy and I were having these deep conversations about our own vulnerabilities privately. And there was a significant boost for me to being able to air my vulnerabilities to somebody else. And then there was a bigger boost hearing him air his vulnerabilities back at me. And we really just thought to ourselves, we need to share these conversations. We need to get this out there somehow. And show everyone that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to talk about your feelings. And that unless you know, that's the only way you're going to grow and get better, and beat some of these demons, is to really face them head on. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what our show is. We get on, we talk about our vulnerabilities, we talk about struggles that we're having, because, you know, Sean, you make it look easy, right? In some of the workout videos, right? You've got a great life, and everyone makes it look easy to be happy and healthy, but it's not easy. It's really hard. So we want to make sure that people know that there's a struggle involved there. And as Jeremy said earlier, we're not experts in any of these various things that we do. We're experts of our own bodies. So we bring on, an expert that'll talk to us about, certain things that we've found to be helpful, like meditation and yoga, and working out, and interview them and talk about how we've put that into our life and how it's made benefits, and maybe how it hasn't worked for us and we've tried something different.
Yeah, and I would go even a step further beyond it's okay to be vulnerable. I think it's vital. I think that if you're not open and you don't share your experience with someone else, I think it is so much harder to have a real connection with someone. And when you don't have a real connection, you open yourself up to more anxiety, more depression, more loneliness, more pain. And so if hearing us, share our struggle and share what's working or what's not working makes someone else go, oh, God, me too, then I hope that it just alleviates that loneliness. I hope it normalizes the situation for them a little bit, because that's one thing. I go to therapy regularly, and my therapist constantly is like, yep, you and everyone else. It's a totally normal thing. But when it's just you in your own head, it can get dark so fast. And so just hearing that other people go through what you go through is so crucial. And without a podcast or something, it's important to have a real person, whether it is a therapist or your spouse or whatever. I know for me, therapy and strangers, it's often easier to be more open because there's less risk. There's less if this person doesn't like me, well, I'll never see them again. But if I'm too open with my wife, then I've just done some damage that's going to take years to overcome. And I know that that's just a perception that I have. I don't think that's reality. I think she wants me to be very open, but it's so much riskier when it's someone that you genuinely care about how they're going to react. So I think that our show and shows like yours allow that space to feel like, okay, other people are going through this too. I'm on the same page as them, and this is less lonely now.
Yeah, so I have a really quick question. Who came up with the name? Because it's pretty brilliant.
I have to give credit where credit is due. It was 100% my wife who came up with it. Jeremy and I were going back and forth with, names like The Struggle is Real or something like that. And it my wife just kind of walked by one day and threw it out as she was going by. What you should just call it the fit mess. With the way she said it, I think she was a little upset at me at that moment for something else, but she's like,
oh my God.
Cause it's just messy. It's so messy. And the name is really personal to me because that was, in thinking back, the analogy that I had to come up with years ago to figure out how to make myself better, because I was so down and deep into this funk that I was hopeless for a long time. And the realization came to me one day when I realized that, I didn't have to, if I had stuff all over the place preventing me from getting to the bathroom in my house, right? I don't need to clean up the whole house to get to the bathroom. I just need to clean a path to get to the bathroom, right? And I can come back and circle back and clean everything else up. But getting to the bathroom, it's going to be messy. And that's the way I felt in my head was, I can get to a place where I'm okay. And there's still going to be a big mess. And there's always going to be things that I could go back and clean up more. To the day I die, I'm going to be cleaning things up. And I need to be okay that it's messy. But I also need to be okay with where I am.
I love that. And so, Jeremy, I have a question for you. What's the messiest thing you've ever done that you can somewhat be embarrassed about, but you're like, I went through this, I have to say it, people need to know that I'm real.
Yeah. I was invited to participate in what was supposed to be a reality show for HBO, and it was based on a group therapy situation. It's the methodology, I guess you would refer to it as, is called radical aliveness. And I had gotten to a point on this journey where I just kept taking all these small steps, and I was very much in this place. I think I just watched Brene Brown's talk on Netflix.
I loved it.
And I was all about just say yes. Every time, just whatever crazy thing comes, just say yes and take it on. And so my neighbor, who was also my massage therapist, she sent me this link to this online show that was basically an example of what this taping was going to be. And she's like, they're taking applicants to film one of these. I think you're crazy enough like me to try it. And I was like, yep, I'm saying yes to this. I'm just going to try. So I signed up and they accepted me. And so they flew us down to Malibu. We spent 3 days at this just amazing, luxurious resort. But in this group of 10 or 12 strangers, we were put through these different exercises to really dig deep and really find some inner demons and let them out. And, part of it was, I think the scariest thing, but the thing that has been by far the most profound experience I've ever had was a breathwork session that we did. I remember they had us lay on the floor. They surrounded us with pillows, and they were like, just the pillows are there because you're going to thrash. You're going to, your body's going to just, convulse. You're going to do these weird things. And I was like, I'm not that guy. I'm not going to be able to go that deep. And they were like, we're going to just lay here and we're going to breathe like this for 45 minutes. And I just thought, this is going to be horrible. How am I going to do this? And so I'm laying there. I'm doing the breath work. They're banging a drum. They're singing this Native American music. It was just this beautiful moment. And I'm breathing. I'm looking up at the ceiling. And all of a sudden, the ceiling melted and twisted and just took me on this, through this, tunnel of light to my childhood. And these moments where I was reaching out for comfort from a loved one. And it was just out of reach. And this whole experience was about, what I took away from it was, stop trying to reach for that because it's never going to happen. You're never going to get what you're looking for. And so much of my life has been trying to make that connection with anyone, right? Trying to find that same acceptance, that same love from that person that I wanted it from. And in that moment, my spirit, my guide, whatever you want to refer to it as, was just like, just let that go, because you're never going to fulfill that. And I just wept. My hands were tingling, they're on fire. I was kicking, I was thrashing, and it was all very involuntary. And it was in a room full of people, but they were all doing the same thing. And, you come out of it, and some of them were communicating with the dead. Some of them were doing the same thing, going back in time. Some were just, it wasn't that powerful. It's different for everyone, but to be that vulnerable in front of not only a room full of strangers, but there are cameras in your face while you're screaming and wailing and crying and reliving trauma as a child. I don't know if it gets a lot messier than
It's
that.
so interesting you talk about that, because just a couple weeks ago, I had a gentleman as a guest. His name is DeAndre Sinet, and I don't know if you listen to that podcast, but I go there in my dreams. Most people have dreams where they come out of the dreams and they're like, I had this really weird dream and I didn't know where I was. Not as much now as before therapy, but before I went to therapy, my dreams were so unreal to the point where I would wake up and I would be standing up, and I would wake up to points where Scott would be kind of bringing me down. So it's just, everyone has just a different experience with their mental state when it comes to the trauma of their past. And I just think it's fascinating.
Or it is just a different way of experiencing reality. That's been one of the biggest hurdles for me to get over in this whole thing is, a few years ago, I don't know if I would say I was a full-on atheist, but I was very much this is a rock, we're here by accident, and whatever happens is going to happen. I am by no means a religious person, but I have become very spiritual and very open to the idea that there is just energy, there is something, and we can manipulate it to some degree, but the less we try to manipulate it and just let it take over, the better our lives are.
It's so, you guys are going to love some of the podcasts that I have coming up because it just kind of goes there. It takes, I wanted, even with today's like filming with you guys, it's just like taking people on a journey that they don't necessarily experience when they wake up or go to work or go to a party. It's like, we know that you're out there and you're driving your car or you're listening or watching this on YouTube. We know that you experience these things and you probably feel a little strange or a little weird. And I think conversations like this help you. I'm talking to the listener right now, help you understand that you are not alone in your thoughts and in your feelings when you're experiencing these things. So Zach, what is one of the messiest things you've been through? Mr. Fit Mess number 2, or 1, I should say, because your wife named the show.
Yeah. There's so much. There's been a lot of messy situations. And I would have to say that, I was in therapy one day and growing up, I had a mother who was, negligent to the point of, criminal charges could have been pressed against her. As a 5 and 6 year old, she would leave my sister and I home for 4 or 5 days at a time. Child Protective Services had to come in and take us away. And I thought it was normal. I thought all kids were raised that way. And I thought that my mother was perfect. And I thought that, I held her up on this pedestal. And I just remember being in therapy this one day and coming to terms with the fact that she was negligent. She made wrong choices and she wasn't this perfect person for me. And that just destroyed my whole sense of identity. And took years to recover from that one. Just this pedestal I had her on that I just thought it was normal to leave your kids home. And Jeremy likes this story because, I didn't have any food in the house and I would eat raw hamburger out of the fridge. I just thought it was normal. This was all normal. I got caught stealing candy from the store because, I was stealing food for my sister and I. And as a 6-year-old, if you're going to steal food, you steal candy. So I think, that was the messiest it ever got for me, was that shattering of the image of who my mom is, and the realization that it was not a good situation. It was a traumatic situation. And it really shaped this raw anxiety that I have. And it shaped it to be more of a crippling anxiety and made the mess messier. But by realizing that, I could unravel it and start to come back from it.
Isn't it quite interesting that, even being, a sexual abuse survivor myself, some of us know that this is not right. Like, I knew it wasn't right, but I conformed my mind to saying this is fine and I'm going to do what I can do to get through it, to protect my family, whatever. And and I'm not a therapist, but I wonder if at any point when you were that age, you actually thought it was wrong, but you just made it okay. And then going to therapy kind of made you, accept what you kind of thought in the first place. I'm not trying to bring it up again, but I'm just saying other people may have thought that and that's why, guys, this is, Zach, what you just said is the number one reason why people are afraid to go to therapy in the first place, because they have to face the pain. And she's probably going to hate that I'm saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Like my mother-in-law, we talked, I don't know, like 6, 7, 8 years ago. And, Scott and I would be like, go to therapy. And she was like, I don't want to relive the pain. And we would try to tell her like, yeah, but, and it's hard to say this, but after you deal with this, you like Scott says, after he dealt with therapy and he and I got married and he met me and we went through healing, that he finally saw life in color. And there are a lot of people that are, Scott calls it black and white, or they're just seeing it like one dimensional. It's just like, if you see life as just a flat picture, it's a telltale sign that you need to, you know, go to someone, talk to someone, so that it can become 4D. You need to live in it, you know, guys?
Yeah.
Well, I think more than I have friends that I see them carrying that weight. I see them carrying their pain and not dealing with it. And so to anyone who says, I don't want to face that again, just look at your own hands. You're carrying it around every single day of your life. Every choice you're making, the way you're living your life is based on the fact that you're not dealing with that stuff. And the only way to get over that stuff is to go through that stuff and to sit with it and really feel it and acknowledge it and give it the time that it deserves, because then it goes away and then the bags get a lot lighter and eventually you let them go, and you can take on so much more when you're not carrying all of that pain around, because that's what you're doing. If you don't deal with it, you're dealing with it every day in a much less healthy way.
Yeah, I love how you say you're still carrying it around. A lot of times I tell people it's not about the weight, it's about the baggage you carry in your life. I mean, yeah. And one conversation can help change your mindset and your world. Guys, I want to talk forever. We have to hopefully
we would say
plan
all day.
Something. I know. Is there any other thing you would love for the listeners to know, maybe about you each individually or the show? Because I really think that you guys and everyone out there listening to the Fitness Podcast is actually going to give you a sense of peace and understanding. And it's just another outlet for you to be able to know that you're not alone in your thoughts and feelings. But do you guys have anything left?
I would say, the show for me is very... It's very personal. We air our laundry in a way that can be very uncomfortable, and it's so healthy for us. I can't restate this enough, that and this was terrifying in the beginning, just getting onto our show and putting out there how we're feeling and what we're feeling, the struggles that we're going through, just makes me feel better, allows me to move and allows me to grow. So, I just want people to know that this show is personal for me. If you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, that's fine too. But this is a very personal show for us. And, it's hard for us to share these things, but we get a lot of positive feedback on it, and it helps other people get through these stages sometimes as well.
Well, and selfishly for me, a lot of this show is accountability. Knowing that every couple of weeks we're going to turn on a microphone and share what we're going through forces me, in the times when the mic is off, to think about how am I living my life and what am I going to bring to the next show, and what is somebody who listens to it going to get out of it. So on a selfish level, it serves that purpose for me a lot. On a less selfish level, I would hope that someone finds a community in us, finds a shared experience in us. And like I've said a couple times, I hope that it normalizes their experience and makes them feel less alone. Because I know for me, when I'm lonely, it gets dark, and it gets dark quick. So the more that we can keep the light on and be there for each other, again, the better it is for all of us.
Guys, thank you so much for sharing your heart today. It's not easy to do. I know we all make it look like it's very easy to do, but it's not easy to do. And it took a lot of internal work to get to the place where you can share your true self and be consistently internally reflective, if you will. It's constantly being able to look at yourself in the mirror and know where you are and where you want to go, even through the struggle. Mm-hmm. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time. I love talking to you guys. You guys are so fun.
And thank you. You've been a big part of both of our journeys. So it means the world to be on your show and to have these conversations with you. It really means so much. So thank you for everything you've done for us, even when you weren't really there. It was just a video. But thank you for
Thanks. Well, just like I tell everyone, and I'm just happy that I get to tell you both face to face, I am your biggest fan, because I just trust and believe. I trust and believe in you.